If you saw a headline claiming the Supreme Court just passed an elder care bill by an 8-to-1 vote, stop right there, because that kind of title is exactly why so many Canadian seniors are getting confused right now. A court ruling and a government bill are not the same thing, and when those two get mixed together, people on fixed incomes can miss the updates that actually matter. And that is where this gets serious. Because whether you live in Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia, or anywhere else in Canada, elder care rules, home support, long-term care access, caregiver rights, and even some benefit decisions are changing in ways that could hit your daily life much faster than most people realize. Here's the truth nobody is saying clearly enough. The danger is not just a misleading headline. The real danger is that a lot of older Canadians hear one dramatic claim, assume some major protection has already been guaranteed, and then stop paying attention. They think help is automatic. They think someone else is handling it. They think if there was a major change, the government would make it obvious. But that's not how this works. In Canada, senior support is often a patchwork. One update comes from Ottawa, another comes from your province, another comes from Service Canada, another comes through a quiet policy change, a notice, an eligibility letter, or a deadline you didn't even realize mattered until a payment is delayed or a service is denied. So let's clear this up in plain English. In Canada, home care, community care, and long-term care are mainly organized and delivered by provinces and territories, not the Supreme Court, and not one single federal bill that suddenly changes everything overnight. The federal government helps through funding agreements, programs, and support for certain groups, but the actual care system most seniors deal with is still heavily provincial. That means what affects you may depend not just on your age or income, but also on where you live, what programs you're enrolled in, and whether you've kept your information up to date. That is why a flashy headline can distract seniors from the quiet details that really control access, costs, and care. Now here's the part that really matters. There are real elder care developments happening in Canada, and they are a big deal. In Ontario, for example, the government reintroduced the Support for Seniors and Caregivers Act, saying it would strengthen dementia care requirements in long-term care homes, reinforce residents' rights to support from family and friends who provide care, expand protections against abuse and neglect, and connect more seniors and caregivers to community programs. That is not a Supreme Court bill, but if it moves forward, it could affect how families access support, how homes are held accountable, and how vulnerable seniors are protected. For many retirees, that matters a lot more than a sensational title. And this is why the story feels so personal. Because for many seniors, elder care is not some abstract political issue. It is whether you can stay in your own home another year. It is whether your daughter can get a break from caregiving without burning out. It is whether your spouse can find a safe bed in long-term care before a crisis. It is whether you can afford transportation, meal help, housekeeping support, or basic dental work without dipping into money you need for groceries. And if you are already choosing between prescriptions, rent, utilities, and food, then any change to care access or benefit rules is not just news. It is your stress level. It is your independence. It is your dignity. But here's the surprising part. The biggest impact on Canadian seniors may not come from one dramatic court moment at all. It may come from something slower and easier to miss. The shift toward aging at home, the push for more caregiver support, and the growing gap between what seniors need and what the system currently delivers. Canada's own National Seniors Council panel said seniors face fragmented services, affordability problems, complex application processes, transportation barriers, caregiver strain, and a lack of age-friendly support. The panel even recommended things like a new age-at-home benefit, stronger home care legislation, long-term care legislation, and higher support for low-income seniors. That tells you something important. The pressure is real, and even government-backed experts are warning the system is not simple enough or strong enough yet. So what does that mean for you if you're a low-income senior living alone on old-age security and the guaranteed income supplement? It means the most important update may not be a courtroom drama. It may be whether your taxes were filed on time, whether your income information is current, and whether Service Canada has what it needs to keep your GIS flowing without interruption. A lot of seniors do not realize this until a payment is reduced, paused, or questioned. And once that happens, panic sets in fast, because when you live month to month, even a short delay can feel like an emergency. That is why staying alert matters. Not because of a headline, but because small administrative details can have very real financial consequences if they slip through the cracks. This is where it gets even more serious. If you receive GIS, the government reviews it using your income information, and there are specific situations that can affect what you receive. If you do not file taxes on time, your payments can stop or be reduced. If your income changes because a pension drops or retirement income shifts, you may need to report that. If you leave Canada for more than 6 months while collecting GIS, you can lose eligibility and may face an overpayment situation. Most seniors will miss this detail because it does not sound dramatic enough for social media, but for people depending on every dollar, this may be one of the most important updates in the entire conversation. Now think about another real-life scenario. A married couple in their late 70s has been together for decades, and then one spouse suddenly has to move into long-term care because of dementia or mobility decline. The spouse still living at home is overwhelmed, scared, and trying to manage the bills alone. What many people do not know is that changes in living arrangements can affect benefits and may open the door to different treatment under certain rules. That is why silence is expensive. When families do not ask questions, fill out forms, or report changes properly, they can miss support they may qualify for. And in retirement, missed support is not a minor inconvenience. It can mean less food in the fridge, more debt on a credit card, or another sleepless night worrying about what happens next. And then there is the hidden financial pressure that doesn't always get called elder care, but absolutely feels like elder care when you're living it. Dental bills, vision problems, mobility issues, transportation, small supports that become big emergencies because they arrive all at once. This is why so many seniors felt relieved when the Canadian Dental Care Plan opened up more coverage possibilities. But here's what nobody tells you clearly enough. Eligibility is not automatic just because you are older. You must meet specific conditions, including not having access to dental insurance, filing taxes in Canada, being a Canadian resident for tax purposes, and having adjusted family net income under the threshold. If a senior assumes they qualify without checking or assumes pension-based dental access does not count, they could be shocked later. Now let's talk about caregivers, because this is the part that often breaks families quietly in the background. A son driving across town every day, a daughter handling medications, groceries, bathing help, paperwork, and doctor calls, a spouse pretending they are fine when they are exhausted. Canada's own aging at home discussions have been pointing towards stronger caregiver support because families are carrying a huge part of the system on their backs. And when caregiver strain gets ignored, seniors suffer too. Appointments get missed, medications get mixed up. Burnout turns into resentment. Emergencies happen faster. So when you hear about elder care changes, don't just ask what it means for seniors in a facility. Ask what it means for the person trying to hold life together at home with no break and no roadmap. And this is exactly why misleading headlines are dangerous. They make people think the story is finished when the real story is still unfolding. They give the impression that one vote somewhere solved the problem. It didn't. In Canada, elder care is moving through legislation, funding decisions, provincial reforms, federal initiatives, expert recommendations, and benefit administration rules all at once. That makes it harder to follow, but it also makes it more important to pay attention. Because the seniors who do best in a confusing system are not always the wealthiest or healthiest. Very often, they are the ones who ask one more question, open one more letter, make one more phone call, and refuse to assume that no news means no action is needed. If you're finding this helpful, this is the moment to subscribe, because these are exactly the kinds of updates that can affect retirement in ways most people don't see until it is too late. And if you know another senior, retiree, spouse, or caregiver who gets overwhelmed by government changes, send this to them now, not tomorrow. Now. Because one missed update on benefits, care access, or eligibility can create weeks of stress that might have been avoided with 10 minutes of attention today. Now let's get to the hidden truth behind all of this. A lot of seniors are waiting for one giant rescue package that fixes home care, long-term care, caregiver stress, and affordability in one move. But Canada's own policy discussion is telling a different story. There is serious recognition that seniors need better support to age at home, including ideas like a new age-at-home benefit, stronger long-term care rules, more help for caregivers, transportation support, better navigation, and more protection against mistreatment. But recommendations are not the same thing as guaranteed money in your bank account or guaranteed services in your community. That gap between what is proposed and what is actually available is where confusion grows, and that is where many seniors end up disappointed. So what should Canadian seniors do next? First, stop relying on viral titles to tell you what changed. If a headline sounds explosive, assume there is more to the story. Second, keep your paperwork current, especially taxes, income information, and any letters from Service Canada or your province. Third, if you receive OAS or GIS, pay close attention to notices, renewals, and any life changes like separation due to long-term care, travel outside Canada, or a drop in income. Fourth, if dental costs are hurting you, check whether you actually qualify for the Canadian Dental Care Plan instead of guessing. Fifth, if you are a caregiver or depend on one, start asking now about respite services, dementia supports, adult day programs, local senior services, and community transportation before things become an emergency. And if you live in Ontario, pay especially close attention to provincial updates around seniors and caregiver supports, because reforms tied to dementia care, abuse protections, family caregiver access, and community programming could become very relevant depending on your situation. If you live outside Ontario, the lesson is still the same. Do not assume another province's headline applies to you exactly the same way. Care systems differ, access points differ, waiting lists differ, even the language used by programs can differ, which means what sounds like national news may turn into a very local question. Who do I call? What am I eligible for? And what changes where I live? Here's a warning many retirees need to hear. The most common misunderstanding is believing that if you qualify for something, the system will automatically find you and enroll you correctly every time. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Another misunderstanding is thinking that if you are already receiving one senior benefit, all your other supports will automatically adjust with it. Again, not always. And perhaps the most dangerous mistake of all is assuming that if you ignore a notice because you don't understand it, it will sort itself out. It won't. Confusing letters become missed deadlines. Missed deadlines become delayed payments. Delayed payments become financial stress. And financial stress is exactly what too many seniors are already carrying. This also matters because scammers and misinformation creators know seniors are anxious about healthcare, long-term care, pensions, and retirement costs. They know fear gets clicks. They know confusion spreads fast. So they use words like urgent, court ruling, hidden truth, and benefit shock to make people feel they are one step away from losing everything. Sometimes there is a kernel of truth buried inside, but often the title is bigger than the reality. That is why the smartest response is not panic. It is verification. Read carefully. Check official updates. Talk to a trusted family member if you need help. And remember that protecting your retirement today also means protecting your attention from people who profit by keeping you scared. So let's bring this home. If you came here thinking one Supreme Court vote suddenly rewrote elder care for Canadian seniors, the real takeaway is actually more important than that. No single dramatic headline is going to tell you the whole story. The real story is that senior care in Canada is changing through a mix of provincial laws, federal programs, aging at home initiatives, and benefit rules that can absolutely affect your housing, your caregiving support, your out-of-pocket costs, and your monthly financial stability. That means this is not a story to scroll past. It is a story to stay on top of. And I want to end with this because for many seniors, this is bigger than politics, bigger than headlines, and bigger than social media noise. It is about whether your later years feel safe or uncertain, whether you can stay independent a little longer, whether your family gets support before burnout hits, whether you know your rights before a crisis forces you to learn them the hard way. So do not let confusing titles make you tune out. Stay alert, ask questions, check your benefits, watch for official notices, and if this helped you understand what is really going on, leave a comment and tell me the biggest concern you have right now about elder care, retirement costs, or benefits in Canada. And please share this with another senior, retiree, or caregiver because this could affect their future more than they think.